Welcome back to a very special edition of Rock Forever. We have not only the world premiere day, but we have both the producer and the director of the amazing new movie, Long Live Rock, Celebrate the Chaos. The producer, Gary Spivak, and the director, Jonathan McHugh. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks. How are you?
Doing great. Love to celebrate this special day with you guys. Going way, way back to rock since I could rock in the crib. You know, it's a special time to celebrate and keep rock alive. Can you, Jonathan, tell us first how far does this go back? Where's the germ of the idea, and how did you get the ball rolling initially?
Well, Gary's been booking these big festivals for years, 10, 15 years, I think. And we've been friends for a long time. We met working for Elektra Records 20 years ago and working on bands like Metallica and Motley Crue. And Gary actually turned me on to, not pretty much turned me on. Took me to our first Jane's Addiction show, that's for sure. Halloween at the whatever year that might have been.
Henry Fonda.
Yeah, right. And so Gary and I have been bros forever, and we love to rock. We go to shows. He would drag me to his festivals. I'd drag him to shows. And then, we had lunch one day, and I just said, Gary, there's something about this fandom that we should really try to make a movie on. And we weren't able to get it together. And then cut to 8 months later, whatever, Gary's like, hey, man, I can't tell anybody, but I just booked Metallica 10th anniversary of this festival in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, remember that idea you had? I'm like, yeah. He goes, why don't we do that? I go, oh, okay. And so in Gary and I fashion, we just figured it out. Like, all right, let me call my cinematographer I'm doing another movie with right now. He goes, oh my God, Gojira's playing, Metallica's playing? Like, I was like, yeah, Jordan, if I buy you a plane ticket, will you come out? And Gary's like, yeah, I'll get some food and I'll book some interviews. It's like, we'll put on a show. And sure enough, we just did it. And that was what, May 17, Gary?
May 17, 2017. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
To take off what John said, yeah, we both were interested in going deep diving into the fandom, into the lifestyle, the community spirit of what makes this beloved genre, rock and hard rock, tick. That hasn't been truly explored, especially in a rock doc, for current based rock and roll. And getting Metallica, and the second interview we booked was Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, because he was to be the headliner that Friday night, and he tragically took his own life the day before. So, and the beautiful thing that I've learned about a documentary is that a story arc takes on its own life, and we had to kind of delve into that, and that led to discussing substance abuse and depression, but how this music is a healer and it saves. And that was very much explored in this film, which we're both very proud of, and having rock stars and fans talk about how much this music means to them, how it makes them feel, how it helps cure them, and how it helps get the demons out. But there are demons that are involved when you're an artist.
Yeah, no, it's a powerful, powerful film. Highly recommended for everyone to see. And, having going to these rock concerts for so many decades, it may be the acts on the bill that immediately get you to buy a ticket, but the experience of that concert is so communal. The feeling of going with your friends or meeting new people, or, getting introduced to new bands and artists you may not have known before is really the thrill as you go home and, plan for the next one. Now I notice obviously you have these sections of both the community of hard rock and metal fans. You have, of course, the exploration of moshing and mosh pits and the whole, sobriety versus addiction and dealing with all that, especially with Chris's passing. Had you decided on these topics ahead of time, or did that just kind of take its course once you started filming?
Well, I'll jump on that. I mean, the addiction thing was never part of the film. We were trying to keep it really upbeat, and it's very hard to dive into a lot of topics in one 85-minute film. And that was, that's its own movie, really. And that was something we never wanted to do. But once you had Chris passing, we literally showed up that morning, and there's a Soundgarden placard on the dressing room, and they're not coming. And so Gary's got to fill that hole and figure out how he's going to do a tribute to Chris. And we were there for that. So, and the first question you have to ask Lars is, Lars, isn't rock and roll so great? it's got to be Lars. Talk to me about how you're feeling right now about Chris passing, and Tom Morello, how and so all of a sudden you have that footage. You're still not planning to use it because it's not part of the narrative of the film we wanted to make. And then we try to go interview Chester Bennington, and he dies. And then you look back at Scott Weiland, who died a few years before that. It's like, okay, well, you kind of have to utilize this and tip, you talk about it. So that's how that segment ended up in. And again, I'm glad we did it, because if it can help anybody and get help and to not go to that dark place, then we won. But it does change the tone of the film, and it is what it is. Really, we just that's the thing about documentaries. You pivot, you make a move, and so that was a move we made.
Gary?
No, just yeah, I'm really proud that we delved into that. I'm really proud that we delved, celebrating rock stars of color in the film. Um, what we didn't want to just do, oh, look how exciting this band is on stage. Um, to me, that gets boring. This is a deep dive into the lifestyle and the community. And with that comes hardship. But at the end, you notice there's a real celebration here. It truly is celebrating the chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful community, and obviously seeing these people in their personal lives was a great look to know that it's just not 18, 20-year-old kids out there. There's parents and grandparents and people who plan their year around their summer festivals, and it's at least three generations when you look out at these shows now. How did you plan or pick those individuals that you focused on their individual lives?
Well, Gary, Gary said, I said, Gary, if we're gonna do this film, like we gotta really touch base with the fans. And he's like, well, there's a crew out in Columbus called the Party Crew, and they meet up at festivals all over the Midwest, and they make up T-shirts, and they commune for these festivals and get together. So I got on the phone with them and talked to them, and we went and met with them in Columbus, and then the ones that really seemed really interesting, I went to visit them at their homes, and I went to their kids' football game, or I went fishing with them, or I went to Abby, who's the wheelchair crowd surfer, her spot in Tennessee, and you just spend time with people, and you see who the camera loves and doesn't love, and you just try to make the best decisions of what will be a really interesting story. And I think we found some really interesting stories. That seems to be what, in our feedback, we're getting, that we're able to capture some of these things that really seem to resonate with a lot of people.
Gary, your thought in choosing the people?
Um, the real slice of American life. These could have been, of the 100,000 people that attend a rock festival over a weekend, these could have been 98,000 of them, and that's what I love about it. They're really everyday, family loving, hardworking. They, instead of going to the lake house or taking their families or their parents taking them, to Mexico for a weekend, this is what they spend their hard-earned money on: going to the festivals, drinking our beer, eating our food, and rocking to the bands. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad we explored it.
Yeah, it definitely adds a human touch to the film. Obviously, as you said, it could have been another concert film and just a lot of footage, of the stage. But to really realize, that these festival audiences are really made up of such a diverse, type of audience, and more importantly, a lot of the reasons, why they come is more than just, the bands on the bill. And obviously, with your look at moshing and mosh pits, I know from an artist perspective, you really like to see a reaction in the crowd. And, most bands are thrilled to see that, whipping of a crowd into a frenzy and feel that energy and give it back to them. But obviously, from a promoter standpoint or an insurance company standpoint, you're looking at this, this potential liability and chaos is as controlled as you can, make it. Obviously, there's still, injuries incurred. and doesn't take away from the fun of it. But I'm glad you guys really explored, what the spirit of moshing is, and the fact that people are really trying to. Well, I'd say 98% of the people in that mosh are looking to protect each other. Talk about the decision to kind of look into, the moshing experience.
I mean, for me, it's like it's one of the craziest things you ever see, and it's also what you think about and why this is viewed as a dangerous genre, because people are mixing it up hard. It's like a full-on contact sport. And for the people that love playing football or rugby or boxing, like this is that kind of thing. Meeting meets music, and people are drawn to that. Whether and I think so. You really have like a situation where psychologically you have a contact sport meeting music, and the fury that music puts people into, especially this music, which whips people up into a frenzy. And to capture that, like I sent my cameraman in with a GoPro and, to get some footage, and he was like, yeah, I'm down with it. And I stood on the edge of the mosh pit and held his camera, and it was like, you feel that energy and it's super powerful. And then you hear like Jacoby from Papa Roach or, M Shadows talk about it and how they love it and how they get a thrill from it. And it's just something fascinating. It's kind of like a rite of passage. I mean, in the Q&A tonight, Jacoby will share some thoughts about taking his son into a mosh pit, I think. And that's kind of really cool to see the next generation. And that's what rock really is. It's kind of like passed on from generation to generation. So from Gary's point, as a promoter, it's a different concept what the mosh pit can bring from a liability issue, right, Gary?
Yeah, there is a part in the movie that you'll see with no music or people, a waving of a banner on by the stage. It says crowd surfing is not encouraged or is prohibited. We do have signage everywhere to protect us, but we also don't want to have people like not have a great time. Jonathan did a great job directing the scene about security, and how serious they take it, and what a science it is to make sure that the fans are protected and the bands are protected. I just love that because it's kind of like this art form. It's kind of like, as the Dexter, or sorry, Noodles and Offspring mentioned, it's like a Disneyland ride, and the security's there to at the end of the ride to take you back. So security, I love seeing them at our shows. I love saying hi to them. They're like the greatest people.
Yeah, haven't been involved, around the Warp Tour for 20 years. I mean, the crowd surfing and the moshing. I mean, again, it's a ritual, but you want to try and protect it. And I'm sure you guys obviously have first aid tents and medics available for anyone that has a laceration or a problem. But yeah, no, it's really all about the fun, the community, the high energy. And, obviously you guys delve into what I think is a great part of rock these days. And that's the emergence of these female rock stars, Lizzie Hale, Taylor Momsen, Maria Brink. I mean, there's really, for so long, there's been such a macho attitude and kind of held a lot of these, women down, that it was a male oriented sport, and, they weren't taken as seriously. But obviously, more and more of these audiences are female, and they look up to these ladies. And I'd like for each one of you to talk about, the emergence these days of the female rock star.
Yeah, for me, it was, once I interviewed Lizzie Hale, and she's just a beautiful woman inside and out, and as a person, and I just was kind of enamored with her. And her brother is just this incredibly fun, like morning show talk show type drummer. He's just a beast drummer. And I met these guys, and I realized that they were playing, in Ohio, and I realized, cut to editing, I realized that they were playing on the West Coast. So Gary and I spoke to the manager about going to one of the shows, and I went up to San Francisco from LA and brought my cinematographer, and we shot with all of them. We shot with Maria, we shot with Lizzie, we shot with Ash Costello from New Year's Day, and interviewed RJ on the bus. And then I went with Lizzie to Amoeba Records, and she met this fan also named Lizzie, who said literally on camera, you know, I've been saving myself to go to a rock show, and I want it to be your show. And that was just so powerful to me to see a young lady who, you know, wants to be like Lizzie Hale. She's like, yeah, I play guitar. I bought a guitar, you know, and I want this to be my first show. Like, that's kind of special. And Lizzie so much loves that. Like, that's why she's in the business right there. And so we got a chance to dive deep on that. So I think it's super powerful. And even my wife, who hates this kind of music, you know, we're at a festival together. She calls me up. She goes, yo, you got to come over to the stage. There's this band called In This Moment playing, and this Maria Brink woman should be like in a Broadway show. She's so theatrical. So, you know, it's interesting how people want to see themselves on stage, and I think that the getting women back to rock through, you know, people like this and Taylor Momsen. Obviously, Taylor Momsen is a classic example. Like, here's a woman who was on her way to be a huge TV star and movie star, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go start a band. And she basically just went down that road and never came back. And she like, I love this. This is what my soul says. This is what I'm doing. Later for that TV pop land. And that is super. I have super amount of respect for what she did. So anyway, that's my thought. Gary?
You nailed it on Lizzie. I just you know, somebody asked me on another interview, Jay. Um, I forgot what the question was, but it was what I've learned from making this movie with John is I've gotten closer with some of these rock stars, and Lizzie and Taylor, Maria are three of them in particular, and you get to know them not only as rock stars, but you also get to know them as people, and you just start rooting for them. You know, you just and that's kind of the theme of this amazing beloved genre that it's the other side of the tracks. You know, Lizzie told me a story once that she used to go to sleepover parties as a teen, you know, 11, 12-year-old girls, and they would all have NSYNC and Backstreet Boys CDs, and she came to these I don't know if you know this, John, she came to these slumber parties with like fucking Slayer.
Oh, yeah, she talked about that.
And
Well, they were playing the Backstreet Boys, right? She said that. They were playing the Backstreet Boys.
she would come
And
to
she
these
played
parties
like
with
Slayer
Slayer
records.
and Metallica CDs, and they're like, "Who is this freak?" Which one of her big songs is "Freak Like Me," and the name of her fan club is the Freaks. So that's it right there.
Yeah, so powerful. Now, you know, we've seen so many performers, you know, over the years, you know, in this genre, but then you see these people that stand out, like, you know, like In This Moment, like a Rob Zombie, like, you know, Five Finger, and so many of these artists that take it to another level theatrically. You know, we've seen guys in guitars, and you can only rock out so much. Why do you think it's an added attraction as you're booking these bands to really have an act that is bringing a show, and a show is obviously a multifaceted, you know, machine or monster, but you know that it seems like more and more acts get creative, and within their own little budget, you know, put on a real visual, you know, experience.
Can you kind of rephrase that question? I know there's a question in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, why do you salute or encourage, you know, the booking of the bands that put on something more? I mean, it started with Alice Cooper and the shock rock, and we've seen it over the years. But it seems like some of these groups, especially In This Moment and Rob Zombie and a number of these acts, they really put a lot into the accentuation of the music with a theatrical production.
No, okay, yeah. Look, rock. If there's a downside in rock, is that there's become a lot of faceless um, bands that, you know, when they come on stage, you're like, are those the roadies? Or because they're wearing a black T-shirt with, you know, sleeves, and they look like they just, as Jason Flom in our movie said, it looks like they just came out of 7-Eleven. Um, you
Came
know,
off work at the 7-Eleven.
yeah, yeah, and you couldn't distinguish them from the roadies or 7-Eleven. No disrespect to people who work at 7-Eleven, but you want your rock stars to look like Scott Weiland or David Bowie or Lizzie or you want to, you know, where's the danger? Where's the mystique? Um, and that is missing. But then once in a while you'll get a Jacoby or you'll get a Lizzie or you'll get like an AJ of Fire from the Gods who just explodes when he hits the stage, and it's entertainment, and you want that. I used to. I remember Mick Jagger said something. He goes, "I get so bored at rock shows. I just want the stage to blow up." And I know what he means by that. Look, Rage Against the Machine, they don't need anything. Just the four of them, and they have more energy and just urgency and intensity than a band with pyro and strobe lights and craziness, right? Because they deliver. So if you're going to walk on stage looking like you just came out of 7-Eleven, you got to deliver. And unfortunately, to me, some bands don't. So I applaud when a band brings entertainment value.
How about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, look, theater is an amazing thing, and when you can combine rock with it, and you mentioned some of the great ones, Alice Cooper really, his shtick. I mean, the first show I ever went to in my life was Kiss, and I thought that band would be like a couple years and done, like because okay, they got a thing, they dress up, they spit fire, they spit blood, so yeah, that's fun for a kid. I love that, but the fact that those guys have been able to keep that together for all these years, it's pretty crazy, and you have to chalk that up to the theatrics of it, and it is a gimmick, but somehow they've marketed it and made it work. Now, when you get to stuff like Maria Brinken in this moment, who are doing some really interesting performance art on stage and dancers and the whole thing, and it's a spectacle, that's super cool because, as Gary said, it needs, the genre needs some of that stuff to kick it, and so it's not just four guys in black t-shirts just rocking. That's fine for what it is too, but the theatrics of it really add another element to me.
Well, yeah, these concerts are escapism, and anytime the artist can take the audience to another place, that is so important. They become these, superheroes, like a Bowie and Alice and Kiss and all that. So I hope that more and more of them do. Whatever their magic is, accentuate. Like you say, Rage may not need that, but whatever their magic is, bring it. Now, obviously, this year or the last year has been the most difficult and something that no one could see in a crystal ball coming up. But as you market this movie, obviously the idea is not to go to theaters, but to bring it right into the home where people are enjoying more and more music. Now, how did you guys decide as far as how you were going to market and monetize the film as opposed to, on demand versus taking it to a network like a Netflix or
Sure.
Amazon Prime? How did you figure
Yeah,
that out?
I mean, look, it evolves. For the longest time, we had been working with a company. We were laying out this 500 screen, one night premiere in theaters, and we wanted to do that. Like, we screened this movie a number of times. We did a cast and crew screening in Columbus, Ohio. We screened at the Grammy Museum in February before the lockdown, and you turn this movie up on a big screen. It's really cool. It's fun. And the idea of seeing it on your TV screen at home or your computer, not fun. But, here we are, 1 year anniversary of the lockdown. We were like, okay, we need a good distributor who gets what we want to do. Theaters aren't really safe to go into yet. So we need a marketing campaign. And my friend Evan at Abramarama and Richard Abramowitz, these guys are amazing at what they do. They put out, if they're good enough for Ron Howard putting out 8 days a week, and Herb Albert and the Grateful Dead documentaries that Amazon put out, we go with them. So we're in with them. And back to your question about why Netflix and why not, that may happen. The streaming services may come down the road once we create enough buzz. But the reality is, remember, hard rock, niche format, not exactly a monster mainstream blockbuster. So we know what we are, and we're a movie made by fans for fans. So at the end of the day, that's all that counts. That the fans see this movie, they like it, and maybe some people are teetering on the edge of like, yeah, I'd like to go to a rock fest, but I'm a little scared by that. That's some crazy stuff. Now maybe they get a sense of it that these people are just like everybody else. They may have more tattoos, have more piercings, longer hair. They may prefer black as their clothing, and even in the summertime. But it's really just trying to get direct to the fans, and that's the way to do it right now.
We got Jay, we got about a minute or two left. Bring it.
But
What
she
you got
said
for
10
us?
after.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, Gary, talk about that. The way looking at how to market and monetize this in today's, marketplace.
Yeah, you'd love to see this in a big screen with a huge, massive sound system, but COVID had other ideas. So I think the good news is that this movie, Long Live Rock, which is you can go to longliverockmovie.com right now, will really serve a purpose. While everybody's jonesing for live events and shoulder to shoulder and chaos, this movie could be a part of your relief package.
Right, it's your stimulus check. For $12, you can get that much more out of it.
$9.99.
Take $12 out of that 1,400 you'll get, and have yourself a great night.
Yeah, we've seen the rise of music documentaries, especially in the last few years. And speaking for myself, I would much rather watch a documentary and see a little history or see reality than to, see some actors, not to, disparage anyone's drama or any of that. What do you guys each feel as far as the future of not only your own pictures, but of this genre of music documentaries?
It's funny for me. The other film I made is this cosplay film, and it's another subculture. And I think that both of these topics are worthy of their own series, because when you see a lot of the stuff that's on reality TV, and it's who follows and why, but there's an interesting stories to these people, and I think the ability, we can only get so deep into them. But there's a lot of really interesting characters that would make a good series, and some of these rock bands, you follow them. There's a lot there, and because this type of music is, I don't want to say bastardized or discounted. It's not where the cool kids necessarily. It's not a Coachella kind of thing, as Gary will say. But there's the rest of the country, they rock. The coast may not rock as hard, but the middle of the country, this is their bread and butter music. So I would like to be able to tell more stories and get more of this information out there, and how this music can help heal people. That would be my take on it. Gary?
Oh, it's just we're out to I wouldn't be lying if I said that we were out to kind of prove Gene Simmons wrong. Rock is not dead, and here's 80 plus minutes documented of living proof that it's alive and vibrant. And it shows the chaos, it shows the mayhem, it shows the energy, but it shows the heart, and it shows the family and the spirit. And again, that's what we're most proud of, is that this movie is again a deep dive into the culture, and it really highlights the fans and many bands. I mean, we have 50 bands in this movie.
Yeah.
So you got everything from Lars and Metallica and Duff to Guns N' Roses, all the way down to Fever 333, and then in the middle you got Greta Van Fleet, which is about to be a bona fide arena band. And we got them early, and during the process of the film, they won a Grammy Award. So we got it all in this film. And I just don't, when anybody's talking about rock is dead, we just don't subscribe to it.
Yeah, I can only think that Gene was referring to the old record industry where we all come from, and the old traditional record deal and the distribution and retail and radio and all that's changed radically. So I can only hope that Gene is thinking that, because obviously he's pushing selling Kiss tickets to his extravaganzas. So but in closing, I'd like each one of you to talk about that a little bit, just the fact of the rise of the independents. Obviously you made this movie without a studio, and more of these acts, speaking of Elektra, your old friends Metallica and Motley Crue own their own catalogs. They're independent indie artists, and a lot of your artists on these festivals are doing this without a record label. There's a new paradigm. If each one of you could just close in your comments of the rise of the independents, both in the movie and the music business.
Well, it's very funny. I had a conversation the other day with a label that has a number of acts in this movie, and Gary and I were label people for decades, right? And so she's like, "Oh yeah, we got this act, we got that act." I was like, "You got," and I realized when I cleared this music, you clear it through like a central spot of this label group, right? and you don't even think, because you're making the movie, who on what label, because you're not really dealing with the label, you're dealing with the managers, and the managers are giving you approval, um, and the publishers are signing off on their side of the music. But the reality is, like, normally in the old days, you'd think label first, right? And I think in this world, it's artist first. It's based on the artist, their manager. The manager has a relationship with their agent. The agent has a relationship with the promoter. That ecosystem of live music is really where we were in this movie. So yes, I agree with you, Jay. As ex-label people, it's, it's a different world. The labels obviously still perform great functions if you're going for radio and you need a huge promotion staff to get it done. But the reality is, there's a lot of these bands that have just built up their fan base and they just do their own thing, and that's a better place to live. We're not having to have their records A&R'd or whatever the court case is. They can just be themselves and go direct to their fans, which is super cool in today's world. That's the beauty of what the internet has provided.
Yeah, I would say to that, record labels, major labels are a quarter by quarter, 4 quarters a year business. There is no short circuit in rock and roll. They don't have the time, energy, bandwidth to invest in artist development. They'll admit it. So, unfortunately, there's a Greta Van Fleet, but there's 99 other rock bands who don't have that skyrocket circuit to the top. So it takes a long time, and that is great for bands who have ownership of their songs and their publishing and their label sometimes, because then they can take the appropriate time. What's really sad is a band like U2 or REM or Bruce Springsteen probably wouldn't survive in today's record label world. It probably would have been dropped.
Right.
So so it goes both ways. I'm not, in the business of selling streams or airplay charts. We're in the business of selling tickets. So we want artists with longevity and a career.
Yeah, I just think it's great to see, more and more of these artists, Five Finger, Rob Zombie, whoever, doing it in a new way and really controlling their own destiny, owning their own masters, or really having control of those assets, publishing and otherwise. So we salute you guys in making an amazing movie. We want to encourage everybody to go out and check out Long Live Rock, celebrate the chaos, get on the demand, and check your links below here. Join the party. It's amazing to have both of you on and really get an insight to hopefully the first of many films coming from you guys.
Good,
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, and also we should mention Hailstorm did an amazing cover of the Who classic "Long Live Rock," which is out there. Just hit the DSPs, Spotify, and everywhere today or yesterday. So you guys should listen to that, because that's a really dope cover they did for that song. And yeah, go to Long Live Rock Movie, and you'll find out how to rent this film and spread the word, because that's the only way these movies get made, is if you guys spread the word about them and dig it.
Yeah, it was great.
Brother, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Long Live Rock. Jonathan McHugh, thank you so much. The director, Gary Spivak, the producer. Guys, keep it up. Can't wait to see you at the next festival.
Thanks for having us, Jay.
Long live rock. Thank you.
Take care, man.